Hi everybody. My name is Tinan Mahbub. I'm a senior UX and UI designer placed in Stockholm, Sweden right now. I have been working as a UX designer for 5 years. I have a background in marketing and business development and also in sales. And then I have a master's degree in interaction technique and design. I've been running a consultancy company for 2 years, and then the last 3 years I've been working as a consultant employed by a company named Sigma Technology. And my current client right now is a governmental agency. It's called the Swedish Public Employment Service. What they basically do is help unemployed people to find jobs, and also different companies to find people to hire. What I will be talking about today is accessibility in UX and UI design, and what it is, how we UX designers should implement it in our solutions for different problems, and why we should implement it, and and I'm also gonna go through how you can learn more about accessibility and how you can check your products that it's accessible for different kind of users. We can go over to the presentation.
Sure. I would like to, before going to the presentation, I would like to thank you for sparing your time and coming here and sharing your knowledge with all of us. It's really a very peculiar topic to talk about, but it's very important. And so it's amazing to have you here with us today and share your tips and tricks with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I wish I had communities like this when I was a junior designer. So anything for my fellow designers.
Over to you.
So we have already gone through it. So accessible and inclusive design. What we will go through today is accessibility. We'll go through disabilities, and we will also talk about good design before beautiful design. And then we will talk about WCAG, or as it's called, WCAG. It stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. What is accessibility? Accessibility is just as it sounds, that you design something, a product that is accessible for all. So you design for all the users. When I say all the users, I mean literally all the users. Unless you can exclude a group of users that you're 100% sure that they're not going to use your product, or you don't need them as customers, then it's fine to exclude them. But until that, you should design for everybody. Let's say an example. If you're gonna make an app for, let's say, reading glasses, you can go around and think that, yeah, well, I don't have to design my app for blind people. It doesn't have to be blindness friendly. But then you should ask yourself, there are cases where a blind person buy reading glasses as a gift for someone else. So there is even if there is even a slight chance that the group you're excluding from your design or from your user group can use your product, then you should design for them as well. The second part is do not discriminate. We never discriminate anyone based on when we design our product based on as the social stuff, race, religion, sexual orientation. But luckily in digital world, that's not a huge problem. But when we talk about discrimination in digital world, we talk about mostly discrimination against people with different disabilities. They're a minority, and we tend to design our products for the majority, the normal people, so-called normal people, and then also design for your future self. Uh, just because I can see today, I can speak, I can hear, I have both my arms, both my legs, doesn't mean that I will have all that in 10 or 20 years. I'm gonna get old. Maybe I need to amputate one of my legs. Um, so have that in your thought all the time when you design. You're not only designing for people with disabilities, you're also designing for your future self. So when we talk about discrimination and like designing for all, it's inclusiveness. So what is inclusiveness? Here's a picture. I took it from LinkedIn. It has been flourished for a while on LinkedIn as a wow, it's a really great inclusive design. But is this inclusive? The answer is no. Why not? Because yes, we include blind people. These Rubik cubes can be solved by blind people because of the braids. But at the same time, we exclude everybody else who cannot read braids, mostly blind people. And then there are also people who are not blind but can read braids. So this is really limited to a group of people. We do the same mistake over and over again, but we do it on the other way around. We design for the majority and not the minority in thought. So when we say design for all, put inclusiveness, make it accessible, it means it for everyone. There are cases where you design things to make it inclusive and then you include a minority group so hard that you exclude the majority group. This is a perfect example of that. So to understand accessibility, TV remote, we cannot imagine having a TV, own a TV, or even watch a TV without a remote control today. But the TV remote was invented for exclusively for people on wheelchair. But what they did there, even though they made it for a specific group of disabled users, they didn't make it only for them. They could have made I don't know, something like when you buy a wheelchair, you get access to a remote control attached to it for your TV. If they had done that, they would have made it exclusively only for people on wheelchair, which would lead to the other people couldn't use remote control for the TV. And look at it today. Everybody uses remote control, not only people on wheelchair or old people or anything like that. Same with the iPhone. When iPhone came, or any smartphone, not only iPhone, I took the iPhone as an example because they're really, really user-friendly and really accessible compared to many other brands. But when smartphone came, it didn't came for blind people or deaf people. They didn't invent or came out with different models for them. They came out for the majority, but they have the accessibility in their mind. Because before smartphone, who could think like a blind person could read an email or could text someone, which they can do with smartphones right now. Who could ever think that a deaf person could make a phone call? But they're doing it with smartphones, with FaceTime, video chat, and everything. So if you make it accessible, it will benefit everyone. It's normally a necessity for 10% of the people. Like without a remote control, there are people who wouldn't be able to watch TV at all. And then it will facilitate for 30% of the people, which means that there are people who could watch TV without remote control, but maybe they wouldn't do it because it's too hard for them. Let's say old people, they're not sitting on a wheelchair, they have both their legs, they can walk, but it's not that convenient for them to walk towards the TV every time they need to change the channel. But it's comfortable for all, 100% of the people using it. So to understand accessibility, we need to understand disabilities. What is disability? Disabilities come in three general forms. That's touch, see, and hear. And those three are divided in three different states. As you can see on the picture, there are permanent state, there are temporary state, and there are situational state. So there is a user who's missing one arm, and then there is a user who has both his arms, but he broke one. And then we have users full healthy, have both her arms, but she's holding a baby, so she cannot use one of her arms. So when we talk about disabilities, when we try to solve problems, design our products oriented on disabilities, it's not that we are just solving problems for the blind person or the deaf person or the person with no arms. We are solving problems even for the people without any permanent disabilities, because temporary and situational disabilities, everybody has it, everybody will have it. And then there's also cognitive disabilities like short memory, memory loss, and stuff like that. So to understand disabilities, we need to also talk about the way of looking at disabilities. In the society, we normally, when we talk about disabilities, the subject of disability is the person itself. When we talk about disabilities, directly or indirectly, we blame the person on the wheelchair. Like, yeah, well, he's sitting on a wheelchair, so he cannot come up to the third floor. So in a way, we put the fault on the person on wheelchair. So I have a small illustration here. Disabilities, what is disability and why it occurs? So here on the left side, we have some, let us call them users. We have some users. We have the first one on the left, full healthy. There's a kid who can run. Then it starts. We have a person with a heavy bag. We have an old person. We have a mother with a baby carriage, and then we have a person on wheelchair. So we talk about that these people, at least the person on wheelchair and the old person, we talk about them like they're users with disabilities. And then on the right side, we can see the social requirements. The society wants them to come up to the right side. But then we have a gap where it says disability. We have a gap there. There is an obstacle that makes the wheelchair or the mother with baby carriage, it's hard for them to go up or go over to the other side. And of course, we can use assistance. We can make a ramp or put an elevator and stuff to solve the problem afterwards, which will, if you think from the business perspective, it will cost you more. It will cost you extra just to solve a basic problem to make your user able to do everyday stuff. So what accessibility in your design does is this, that why not make both the left side and the right side on the same level, same plan, instead of using assistance. Now, this is just an example. Don't hang on to it like, yeah, well, we need 2-story buildings, of course. Yeah, but if we need 2-story buildings or 10-story buildings, then if we don't put an elevator in the building, whose fault is this? We're normally gonna say, as the culture is, we're gonna say, well, the person on wheelchair, he cannot go up to the 10 stories. Instead of saying that, yeah, well, when we built this building, we made a huge mistake. We didn't put an elevator here. So we need to change the way of thinking as designers. We need to see disabilities as something that we create. We, the builder of the building, builder of the app, designer of the product. It's something that we create for our users who has some kind of variations. So that's disability. So we're gonna go next to a very controversial question of matter. That's good design before beautiful design. I'm originally from Bangladesh. I'm very known to the culture we have in Asia, Bangladesh, India, whichever country you talk about. When we design, when we talk about UX and UI design, we tend to talk very much about it needs to be beautiful. We don't look at it as a problem-solving occupation. We look at it more like artistic occupation. Well, your gradients is beautiful, your fonts are beautiful, instead of talking, okay, what problem are we solving with our product? Like this picture is an example. It's very good looking. I like it. I like to look at it. It's very futuristic, very sci-fi, but I don't have any problem with my vision. I don't use glasses. I'm used to use digital products on daily basis, both on my work and on my free time, but it's still very distressful for me. The color contrast is very bad. I can barely see what it says. There is not enough information or header that explains to me what is what and what's gonna happen if I click here or there. So it's like a just good looking. I like to use an example in this case. It's a funny example. It's like think of movie actors. Good looking movie actor, he might get the job done. He might gonna get 1, 2, or 3 movie contracts because he's very good looking. But he's not gonna have a great career as an actor who actually is good actor, but not that good looking. Let's say Nawazuddin Siddiqui, for example. He's not that good looking, but he's going to have, his career is much greater than, let's say, John Abraham. He's good looking, but he's not a good actor. Anyway, that was just a funny example, just for you guys to understand what I mean when I say good design before beautiful design. I'm gonna show you some examples where I'm gonna show you good looking design, and then I'm gonna show you good design that follows the accessibility requirements. Here are 2 search bars. Very beautiful gradients. As I said before, we like gradients. Everybody likes gradients, but gradients don't solve problems. And don't forget, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. Just because something is beautiful for me, it necessarily doesn't have to be beautiful for the users. So instead of thinking like an artist, think what kind of problem for your user are you solving? We have 2 search bars here. It's very good looking, minimalistic. We have icons inside of the search bar, and then we have hint or ghost text search that says search here. It's spacey. It does. You have a lot of space around, and it's classy. It's neat and clean. But the problem arises here. People who use screen reader, for those who doesn't know, is a program that reads your screen. It's mostly used by blind people and also people who has bad vision, and also people with some cognitive challenges, such as concentration challenges, ADHD and stuff like that. They use screen reader as well because they cannot look at the screen for long and concentrate on what to do, where to click. And when a screen reader reads these search bars, a screen reader cannot read ghost text or a hint. A screen reader cannot read and explain what this icon is. And the icon magnifying glass, we who are used to use digital products, we know, okay, magnifying glass means search, but we cannot take it for granted that every one of our users have that knowledge. Besides, it's an icon that works as a button. Why using something as a button when you have buttons? There is nothing wrong with using buttons. So I will give you an example. It's maybe not that good looking, but it is accessible. It fulfills all the requirements. First of all, you need a label, a search label that says what you're gonna do here. You're gonna search for what? You're gonna search for, let's say, cities or anything, or you can search for everything, whatever. And then you have a button. The button in this example, it's joined with the search bar. You can put it separate. It doesn't matter as long as there is a button. Because the screen reader doesn't read what's on the screen. The screen reader reads the code behind, the HTML code. And then it needs to be a button for the screen reader to understand it's a button and then tell the user that's a button. You can click on it. So this is an example. And as I said, maybe it's not that beautiful, but it's good design. So if you have the good design as base, you can make it beautiful later. Here's another example. We use colors a lot to indicate different things, like red colors to indicate negative result, green for positive. And yeah, of course, red and green. Red is no, green is yes. It's pretty international. Everyone in the whole world knows. Even the like signal lights on the street have those colors in the whole world. Nobody uses other colors. But what happens if you're colorblind? These two are exactly the same, the red one and the green one. I didn't change the color. I just used a plugin that shows me stuff, how it looks for a colorblind person. And colorblindness is not that uncommon. Here in Sweden, we almost 10% of the population are colorblind that we know of. And then there are people who is colorblind, but they haven't realized yet that they're colorblind, because for them, it always have been gray and dark gray. So they don't understand. It takes time to realize that someone is colorblind. I have a colleague. He's a PhD. He has like 15 years work experience. He's a backend programmer. We realized for a couple of months ago that he's colorblind while we were working together on a product. So colorblindness is more common than you think. It can also be poor resolution on your computer screen. That's not, I don't think that's going to happen that often now, 2021, but there's a chance. and also black and white printer. That also how often that happens, but you might need to print out something, and even if you don't have a black and white printer, the ink in the printer can be dried out or finished, and then it's gonna print out in black and white. What happens then? So never use only color to indicate something. There should always be something more, always. Here are two examples. You have check mark or X or up and down. Now they're just examples, but you can also write yes in green and no in red. So even if the color is not there, you still understand as a user what you want to say. Same with this. It's just a graph, and if you're colorblind, you see it as the right one on the picture, and it doesn't make sense. So here, what you could do is using patterns, because even if it gets all black, you have different patterns that's gonna help you to understand the difference between the pillars. We have another one, it's disabled buttons. I personally love disabled buttons. Disabled buttons is when the button is gray and non-clickable. And when you right here, when you put your username and password, then it blinks, just like on the right one. It gets color, it gets more structure, so you understand that you can click on it. But disabled buttons are not that not accessible at all. It doesn't fulfill the requirements we have from WCAG. I'm going to go through WCAG later on, but you can get an argument here that, yeah, well, we want to notify the user that unless you put your username and password, you cannot log in. You cannot click on it before you put in everything in the field. My thought is, I pretty often compare my digital products with our regular physical products, because all digital products are made inspired by real physical products. Trash can is a really good example. Trash can is, it could be a normal file or whatever where you erase or throw away your stuff, but it's called trash can, it looks like trash can, and it behaves like trash can. Why? Because when something digital that reminds us about physical product, then you're more eager to use it and you understand it. It's more perceivable, easier for the user. Just as trash can, we know that even if we throw something in it, we know it's still there until I empty the trash can, just like in home. You can throw something in your trash can and you can go back and pick it up. But once you go out and empty your trash can, it's gone forever. Same thing with drop downs. When you click on a drop down, why is it that it opens down and not up or at the side? It's because of gravity. There is no gravity in digital products, but everything works as in the real world. The drop downs opens down because of gravity. So here, the argument I was talking about that, yeah, well, we will notify the user that you cannot click on the button or you cannot log in unless you put username and password. I have two solutions. These are not the only solutions, but it's just two examples. when you click on the login button, without putting your username, you could get a notification that you have to fill in your username. The other one is that even better, that you inform the customer or the user already from the beginning that it's mandatory to fill in username and password. Just think of a door. Just because a door is locked doesn't mean that the knob is going to disappear. The knob is still there. You can still pull on it or turn on it. It's not going to open the door unless it's unlocked. So with that said, there are hundreds of these kind of requirements and rules and also recommendations. I'm just showing you some examples in lack of time, but I will go through WCAG, and I will also tell you where you can find more of these examples and informations. So WCAG, what is WCAG? It's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, as it is called. It was presented for the first time in the late 90s in United States. After that, so it has been spread pretty much all over the Western countries, in Europe, even South America, North America, of course, Canada, all over. And now UN has a department that only works with WCAG. WCAG have four main principles, and they have different levels of guidelines. They're the latest version, they have been updated pretty often since it came out. The latest version is WCAG 2.2. It came out, I think, 2019 or 2018, and it's an ongoing process as far as I know. WCAG is mandatory by law for government agencies and their subcontractors. So the clients I have right now, I have to follow WCAG. I have to make accessible products, because the thought is like that. If you're a government agency, who is your customer? Who is your users? Everybody who pays taxes, right? Maybe not babies, but everybody else, like 15 up. Everybody who pays taxes, who is able to pay taxes, maybe unemployed right now, but they will work and pay tax, and everybody who has paid taxes in their lifetime, like someone who's 90 and doesn't work, but he has been working till he was 70. So everybody who pays taxes are their users. So we have to make products that can be used by everyone. And there is nothing that says that disabled people who is on wheelchair or who is blind or deaf, they don't work or pay taxes. So for us, it's really mandatory right now. I think it's the same all over in the whole Europe. And if you don't follow it as a government agency or a subcontractor to a government agency, you can be fined. And I'm talking about fine on like several million US dollars. But this is something that it's not just if I have a client who's a government agency, or if it's mandatory for me, then I have to do it. It's recommended for all. Everybody should follow it. And at least here in Sweden and Scandinavia, everybody tries to follow it. Then if they don't, they're not going to get fined or anything, but everybody tries to follow it because it's just beneficial for your own business. So WCAG have four different principles. It's perceivable, operable, understandable, and it has to be robust. So perceivable, they mean that if you make a product that has, let's say, a video or something like that, you have to have subtitle, you have to have high contrast, color contrast on your text to the background. You as a user have to be able to zoom in and zoom out, because some people they don't see that good, so they have to sometimes they have to zoom in every web pages like 300-400%, and you need to make a product that, like your pictures or text and stuff like that, if you zoom in 300%, it doesn't break, it doesn't get pixely. If you have any background sound, you should have the option to turn it off. And also, as I mentioned earlier, never use only color as to indicate something. And then we have operable. Your product needs to be operable even without a mouse. You need to be able, as a user, you need to be able to use a product without using a mouse. Let's say you lost your mouse on the way to the work or something like that, or maybe you have Parkinson's. Parkinson's, it's when you shake, you don't have control over your body movements. Then it's very hard to use a mouse. Some people, they use voice control. Blind people use screen reader, and also operable means it needs to be very easy to navigate. When you click on the button that says right, you need to take your user to the right and not up or down. Also give them enough time. Don't rush them. Don't put like, yeah, well, you have 30 seconds to read through here and then click OK, agree or don't agree. Give them enough time. The third one, understandable, as it says, understandable. Use easy language. Make it predictable. If you do a mistake, make it reversible. Don't make a product where you accidentally click on erase something and you erase it for good. Make it possible to make mistakes as a user, and use easy language. I mean, when we wrote essays or exam papers, we always use very complicated and sophisticated words. But when we build a product, we are not building a product for the professors or the scholars. We're building a product for everyone. Use easy language. Don't make it only English oriented. English, just because, like, don't think that, well, all our users are able to speak English. Not all English spoken people are rich, and not all rich people speak English. So you want to make money. If you're smart, if you want to make money, make your product international. Put language choices. All the big companies, wherever you go, even here in Sweden, the products, almost all the products, none of them are only in Swedish. And it's not Swedish and English either. They have like 5, 6 different languages. So if possible, put several languages. If not, use easy language. And then robust. Robust means that means that your product needs to perform the same way whichever device you use. If you're using the latest MacBook Pro, or you're using a phone, cheap phone, your product should work the same way. Then, of course, the hardware and the software can make it slower, but your product should use the same way. And also, it has to be like, if you use it on a laptop, and then you design it for a cell phone, you're not allowed to take anything away in lack of space. Like, yeah, well, we have space with this button on desktop, but here on cell phone, we don't have place for this. So we just skip it. If you want to do this or that, you need to have a specific type of device. That's not very accessible. So WCAG, if you want to learn more about it, if you want to read more about it, if you want to go through all the requirements and use it as a maybe checkbox for your design, for your solution, go into www.w3.org. As I mentioned, there are 3 different levels of WCAG requirements. It's A, AA, and AAA. A is the minimum requirement. You really should use them. AA is requirement for government agencies, and AAA is good to have. Example for A is color contrast. You need to have dark or high color contrast. You cannot put like gray text on black background, how good looking it even is. Labels, then both in the interface and also in the code. Because as I said, screen reader reads the code behind the HTML code. It doesn't read what you have on the interface. That's AA standard, AA level. And that's why it's very important for us UX designers to collaborate with programmers on daily basis. Try always to work agile and really like work on daily basis, sit with them and work with them. I know it can be hard as a designer, work with programmers. I have had my fair share of disappointment and like conflicts with programmers, but if you have the product's best in your mind, it's worth it to have those kind of conflicts at workplace. So the programmers also need to understand that they have to code on a specific way so that your interface is accessible for everyone. It's not good enough that you just design something and send the prototype and then you're done with that product. A UX designer's work is never done until the product maybe stop existing. Then we have Avid linking or animated contents. It's also AA standard. And then we have AAA level. It's subtitle or sign language on videos. If you have a video on your web page, use subtitles or sign language for deaf people. But it's, as I said, it's AAA level. It's good to have, but if you don't have it, it's not a big deal. So how can we test our products? When we design something, we follow all the WCAG requirements, and then we have a complete prototype. We have tested it on users and everything. How do we test accessibility? First of all, test the contrast on contrastratio.com. Use the plugin Grayscale. At the Grayscale, you can find it whichever tool you use, Figma, XD, Sketch. Everybody have Grayscale. Grayscale is the plugin that I use to convert the red and green dots to see how colorblind people would see it. Use the keyboard only. If you build a product, or at least try to work one day from your office, one day mouse-free day. Just put the mouse away and work only with the keyboard. Then it will make you understand more how you should design your product for the people who cannot or doesn't want to use mouse. And then you have TalkBack or VoiceOver on your cell phone. You can use them. A screen reader is very, very expensive and very hard to operate. If you're not used to it, you cannot just get a screen reader and start using it to test your product. So the best we can do is you have TalkBack or VoiceOver both on Android and Apple. So use one of them, depending on which phone you're using. And then you have also some auto wicket check sites. Auto wicket check sites, they have their issues as well. I mean, they don't. I can give you an example. Here, it's a website. It's a governmental page from some state in USA. I don't remember where. This page is WCAG approved. It fulfills all the requirements, but it's checked. Most probably they haven't have a UX designer. They checked it in most probably in an automated WCAG checklist. But this is a hideous website. This is one of the ugliest websites I have ever seen. And not only that it's ugly, it doesn't look that user friendly either. And that's good for us as UX designers. Luckily, the robots are not going to take over our jobs pretty soon. So here where we come in, we use the requirements, but we also try to make it user friendly. We don't make the Rubik cubes, as I showed, that, yeah, well, it should, I want to help the disabled users and then make something that only help the disabled peoples. It should help everyone, all of our users, designed for all. Why so much talk about accessibility besides what I have said? Because accessibility pays off. It reach out to a larger user base. There are less canceled or failed attempts. I don't know how sensitive you guys are, but me myself, if I have to cancel or if I have one or maximum two failed attempts on a website, I'm never gonna go back to that website again. How beautiful it even is, because the competition is huge here. I can find 10 others within 30 seconds that sells or promotes the same thing. So if you have canceled and failed attempts, you're gonna lose customer. Less cases for the customer service to handle, which is a cost. Customer service costs a lot. No need of custom-made solutions. As the illustration I showed, that the disability path, you don't have to make a ramp or a stairs afterwards. Make it flat and accessible from the beginning. Satisfies customers. That means more money for you, less complaints and legal issues, and great marketing. I barely hear any friend of mine telling me, hey, have you seen this app? This is so beautiful. You should use it. Never. But I have heard a lot of people saying, have you seen this app? It's really good. It solves this and this and this problem. You should use it. So great marketing. Word of mouth is still the best marketing you can get. But mainly it is about respect for the people. That was all for me. 47 minutes. I think I made it in time. So we can take questions now.
Hi,
Hi.
Thank you so much for such an insightful session. I think we've had quite a few questions. We can
Sure.
go over to the questions now, probably. So the first question, you can see the questions, right? I'll just,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
I
just
can
play
see
it
that.
on the screen as well.
Um, should we start with Viraj?
Yes.
How can you be considerate about cognitive disabilities in your design? I can give you an example as like short memory or memory loss is a cognitive disability. It can depend on some kind of illness, or it can depend on the user is very old, like 80 or 90 years old. Then the examples I gave in WCAG that make room for mistakes, like being forgiveful, like forgive your users if they make any mistakes. Don't rush them. And also another example, it can be that labels on a search bar. When you use a search bar and you only have like the ghost text, like hint, what happens when you click in the search bar to write? The ghost text disappears, right? And someone with short memory, when he forgets, wait, what can I search here? Or what am I supposed to write in this field? What do they have to do when you don't have a label? He has to click outside the search bar again, wait to the ghost text to appear again. So put a label. In that case, if you forget, you read it again. Put enough information, even if doesn't look that nice. I understand everybody wants a neat and clean design, but put information all over. If you do this, this will happen. If you want to do this, click here, not just click here, and then let the user guess what will happen.
Pretty interesting, and I think I like the concept where you mentioned about how it's so important to make a good design rather than and functionable rather than just beautiful, which gets us to our actually second question from Sahib.
Should make our design good and you mean to say that we should make our design good and functional instead of making it beautiful but not functionable? Uh, Not instead, but you should. I was very careful with which word to use on that header, and finally I decided to write before. So make good and functionable design first, and then you can make it beautiful. But if you don't have time, I know as a designer that sometimes you have really short time to work within, then make a good functionable product, because we are in a problem solving business. We are not Da Vinci. We are not here to paint beautiful arts. We don't work. If you work as a graphic designer, if your job is to design logos and posters and stuff like that, of course, that's there. The beauty is everything. But we are not in that business. As a UX designer and even UI designer, we are in problem solving business. And as I said, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. What you think is beautiful is not necessarily beautiful for the others. But if you make a functionable product that will work for your users, that will work for your users, even if it's not that good looking. So in a perfect world, we need both. As the last example I showed you, the American governmental page, it's hideous. It's very functionable, but it's not good looking. So make it beautiful, but that should be our second priority.
Pretty interesting distinction, and how you mentioned about choosing your words carefully here, because
Yeah,
a lot of times we miss out what we're saying, and like Sahib did, and probably sometimes even we do, we
yeah.
choose the word, we do not choose our words cautiously.
No, I knew that this is a controversy, uh, talking
Subject.
about like good design before beautiful design. So that's why I was very careful with that word. So no, not instead, but you
Before.
should prioritize good design.
That is a nice distinction. I would like to take the third question from Satyam.
Yes, Satyam. How can you include the needs of all disability groups in your design? Hopefully you not gonna need it, because as I said, if you can exclude any group of people from your user group, then you don't have to design for that person, or that group of people. Uh, but if you have a product, such as our product, the what I'm working with right now, then I actually have to design that includes all kind of disabilities. And but if I try to go through it, it's gonna take very long time. That's why, if you go to w3.org, and read through WCAG, it covers pretty much everything. They have been working on it for a long, long time. There are really great people who has been working for it, and even the governments of various countries are willing to use it just because of it helps you to include all kind of users to your design. So I think it's a very broad question to answer, um, specifically, but you can check out, go in and check out w3.org and read through web content accessibility guidelines, because we have a complete guideline, so use it.
I think a lot of times we do not choose to go through the guidelines when they're all there, and then we sacrifice on a design. So I think the guidelines and everything are made for a reason, and people should definitely go for it.
Mm. Viraj, kindly give an example of what disability groups to add in your user target. Um, how about blind people? Um, I, the thing is, when I say blind people now, I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but most of you maybe thinks, why would a blind person use computer or any digital products? Um, but the thing is, here I myself has a colleague who works on the computer, who is totally blind, 100% legally blind, and she goes around with a like guide dog, uh, and so who can say that she wouldn't need to use my product? So blind people, how do they navigate through your products? It's with help of screen reader, and that's what I use as an example on several places, that um, put buttons instead of just icon, put information besides the icons, like it's not good enough with the house icon, put right home on the side as well, because when a blind user use your product and use the screen reader to read, it's not gonna read the icon as home. It's gonna read what it says on the side. Uh, so this kind of stuff. Um, don't use disabled buttons, for example, because a screen reader cannot read disabled buttons. We who can see, maybe we understand, okay, there is a button, but I cannot click on it until I do this or that. Blind people is not going to understand that, because they read everything but not the disabled button. hope that answers your question, or hope that example helps.
We would like to entertain any questions, any more questions if you have, guys. We have one more.
Yeah, Viraj has a following question, I guess. But if we do not use disable buttons, is it inclusive the general group? Why not? Because if you don't have a disabled button, if the button is able when it's there, I as a user don't think it's going to make me confused on any way. And then I gave example as well. If I get confused and click on the button anyway, so you had two examples of what you could do. The first one was that you get a notification as a user that you need to fill in here and there to be able to click on the button and go further. The other one was you have the information already by the label, that username, and you have a on bracket it says mandatory.
Pretty interesting. I think with this we end our Q&A for today. Any last questions we'd like to entertain in the next 2 minutes? Until then, I have one last question from you. That is,
Sure.
what is one of the advice you would like to give to all the budding designers out there?
Explore it all. As I said, I wish I had communities like that when I started my career. So you have the opportunities. UX has become very big. Everybody knows about it. Everybody understands the importance of UX. So embrace it. And you're not going to be able to learn everything in one day or 1 month. I am learning. I'm still learning. I don't think I can say in 15 years either that, yeah, well, I'm done learning. And collaborate with programmers. It's very important for the UX designers to understand. I'm not telling that you should take courses in HTML, CSS, and stuff like that, but you need to understand the general opportunities and limitations codes have. So try to collaborate with programmers.
Well, I think we've got a really good advice out there, and I think it's really about exploring and never stopping to learn, because we're every day something new is coming. And so, like you said, that even in 15 years, you cannot actually say that you've learned it all. Thank you so much for being here with us, Tinan.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It was such a wonderful pleasure for all of us. And
it was an honor.
I would like to thank the audience for being with us till the end, and for all the questions which helped keep the webinar intact. You can check out Tinan's socials in the description below. Don't forget to join our Discord community. Until next time, guys.
I've done it already.
Yes, we're happy to have you there.
Yeah. And thank you for very good, interesting questions as well to the audience. I hope the content was helpful and informative. And as I said, I don't know everything, but hopefully whatever I said, it helps you in your career one way or another.
Definitely.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.